We'll start with some general principles of actually how you're going to be taking care of your worms and what kind of guidelines you might want to follow in understanding what is a good choice and a bad choice on worm care. So there are 5 key principles to really keep track of when you're taking care of your worms, and those are friendship, ecosystem, oxygen, hydration, and carbon. One of the first things I would encourage you to think about when you're considering how to look after your worms is think of them as your friends rather than your products. And it is likely that if you give your worms a really, really good life, then the outcome from that is that they will give you beautiful compost to feed your plants and feed your garden. But I really encourage you not to think about the product of worm farming being the main goal. Really, it is about building this relationship, holding an ecosystem, holding a population of worms, and encouraging them to be healthy and well. So a good principle to follow when you're thinking about taking care of your worms is that you're really managing an ecosystem. That ecosystem is complex, it's dynamic, so it's changing all the time, and it is diverse as well. And really, balance in your worm farm comes from having a thriving, dynamic balance in that whole ecosystem. It's not just about the worms themselves, but really all of their friends and whānau that are in the bin with them. Really need a lot of oxygen moving through the worm farm in order to make sure that the whole system is balanced. All the food and materials that you're packing into there need to make sure that there is actually enough holes and gaps, and it's porous enough that the oxygen can move through that whole system very freely, and make sure that your worms can breathe well, and so can all the other things that are living in there. Water content in your worm farm. This is also really important, and this is about making sure it's not too wet, it's not too dry. So a good rule of thumb for a way to check on how wet is my worm farm, does it feel like the texture of a damp sponge? So you shouldn't be able to wring out that sponge and have water drip from it, but it should definitely feel damp and wet to the touch. Not too dry, not too sodden. Carbon is the building block of life. The things that contain carbon is all sorts of woody, fibrous, brown materials. Generally, you want to make sure that you're adding enough carbon into your bin to balance out all of the very, very nitrogen-rich food that you're going to add to it.